What is going on, everybody? Rapid here bringing you guys a brand new reaction video, and I'm super excited for this one. You guys were asking me to react to this one on my last FitMC video, so today we're reacting to FitMC, The Fall of Minecraft's 2B2T. Now that title can mean a lot. My first reaction to that title is that Minecraft 2B2T, like, something happened to where the server got destroyed, but I'm hoping that's not the case. Anyways, I'm not going to talk too long, but make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. We're on the way to 400. We're at like 320 something. So let's get to 330. Okay, here we go. A 23-minute long video. Excuse my hair. I just got out of the shower and I didn't comb it, so that's why it's all over the place. But let's get it.
The oldest Anarchy server in Minecraft has just spent the past...
He's always got to let us know it's the oldest Anarchy server in Minecraft.
4 weeks in complete turmoil. An infamous group of hackers has been using an exploit against the entire server for the past 3 years in secret.
3 years?
It's finally been revealed to
3 years and nobody knew about it? Wow.
The public. As someone who has covered Minecraft exploits for years, I can safely say this is the most powerful and destructive one I have ever seen.
Oh gosh.
The ultimate coordinate exploit. Capable of tracking the real-time movements of over 300,000 players.
What? That's insane. I'm not going to pause the video too much, but when I do talk, I'm going to try not to pause it, because or else this video will be super long, but that's insane.
Across all 3 of Minecraft's dimensions, 15,000 bases were found using this exploit. There was nowhere to run or hide. It was used to grief countless builds and steal over 200 million Minecraft items from stashes. The group responsible was thought to have quit the server years ago.
No, bro. Of course they have to use the exploit to destroy and grief stuff, bro. That's just... I mean, it's an Anarchy server, but that's just... It's annoying. Really, it's just annoying.
Behind the scenes the entire time. What's remarkable is that this exploit shows how fundamentally flawed Minecraft as a game actually is. One person even tried to warn the community that this was happening, but they were written off as crazy, and no one listened. Prepare yourselves, for today we'll be discussing
he just called Minecraft servers
the most powerful exploit in Minecraft history, explaining who discovered it, how it was possible from a technical perspective, and the complete and utter destruction it caused.
Just think about that. Somebody went through all this trouble with this exploit for a Minecraft server. A Minecraft server.
Video has been 3 years in the making and has required months of research and gathering testimony. So, if you consider hitting that subscribe button, you are an absolute legend.
You are. You're a legend.
With that being said, let's get started. Since the server began in 2010, players have always attempted to use exploits in order to gain an advantage over others.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen my video, The Day 2B2T Almost Died, I'll sum it up real quick. In 2016, a group of players that went by the name Nerds Incorporated attempted to take over the server through the use of hacking and social engineering. They actually succeeded at their plan and had access to admin powers, but it was short-lived and they eventually lost them. Many members of the Nerds would go inactive, and for a couple of years, not much was heard from them, until 2 years later, in 2018. 2 players, Ox22 and Bubba J, were both server regulars that had an interest in Minecraft.
Ox22.
They had recently discovered a way to crash the server by loading a massive amount of chunks at the same time. The most simple thing you can do in Minecraft is breaking a block. And to do this,
pretty smart.
You need to click on it. What the exploit did was click on blocks everywhere across the map, even if they were out of render distance. This forced the server to use an incredible amount of resources attempting to load chunks that had never been visited by players. Thousands upon thousands of chunks
that's actually
were loaded
insane,
in a matter of seconds, causing incredible amounts of lag, and eventually the server would crash. Instead of abusing this
how did people find these exploits?
Ox and Bubba J started theorizing how it could be used to their advantage. There was a way that they could turn this crash exploit into a coordinate exploit, but they needed the proper conditions first. You see, the majority of multiplayer servers in the Java edition of Minecraft run something called FitMC, which fixes bugs and makes the game more stable. Occasionally, though, a bug fix can lead to a vulnerability that can be exploited to someone's advantage. Anytime there was a server-breaking exploit, 2B2T's admin, Housemaster, would have to report the issue to FitMC. If they could crash the server to produce a specific out-of-memory message to House, he would report the bug. The most obvious fix to this would be to have chunks only respond to the server if they were loaded by a player, which could reveal someone's location. It was genius. The two shared their plan with a close friend named Frickin, who was a member of
So this is Housemaster's plan or the hacker's plan?
Incorporated, the same group that tried to take over the server in 2016.
Okay.
He confirmed
so it's the
that
hacker's
their plan could work if paper developers were to implement the obvious fix. And so
something crazy about this is that all this is like 30-year-olds. A lot of these dudes have been playing the server for like 10 years, and this is like 30-year-olds doing all this stuff.
Set their plan into motion. In July of
30-year-olds
2018,
are like, I'm gonna hack
they
this
would
Minecraft
begin
server.
crashing the server as fast and hard as they could, making it unplayable. Each crash would notify House that players were attempting to click blocks out of render distance, and it was causing the server to go haywire. He reported the issue to paper on July 12th, and later the very same day, the exact bug fix the group was hoping for was implemented. When attempting to click blocks out of render distance, the server would only give a response if a chunk was loaded by a player. They now had the proper conditions for their coordinate exploit. And the following day, July 13th, they had their first working version, but it was very primitive. They would keep an AFK account in the overworld, and it would attempt to click blocks in all chunks leading away from spawn in a spiral pattern. If a chunk responded, it would send the coordinates privately in chat. Any chunks that gave a response were then charted on a graph. Bubba J would begin using the exploit to find and destroy item stashes, which started a panic in the community. Wanting to keep the exploit as low profile as possible,
why are you doing that, bruh?
Frickin suggested a name for it. No-com, short for no comment.
No-com.
If the exploit name was somehow leaked, it wouldn't raise any red flags. As a member of Nerds Incorporated, Frickin told the others in the group about the exploit, and they were brought into the circle of trust. In August of 2018, I released a video discussing the crash exploit that had already been patched. But while doing research for that video, I asked Bubba J if he knew anything about the exploit. He replied with no comment. Little did I know at the time, he was actually telling me the name of the exploit.
The name.
It was hiding in plain sight, and we were all oblivious to it.
That's hilarious, bro. He literally told him the name of the exploit and the entire group.
In the following months,
but the name's so clever that he didn't realize.
Proved to be tedious. It was slow, resource intensive, and there was no easy way to differentiate between actual bases and simple dirt huts. In most cases, the charted chunks were just empty wilderness. There was also no easy way to tell which specific player was in the loaded chunks. They needed some sort of automation.
Jeez.
Enter Lejerv.
They went through a lot for
talented
this.
programmer and the lead developer of Baritone, a program that automated actions in Minecraft. Lejerv had legitimate experience with machine learning, so the
they
nerds
got a
requested
legit
his
programmer
help
to do
in
this.
making the exploit more powerful. He accepted the challenge and was brought into the circle of trust. Over the next few months, his contributions would change everything. The first order of business was making searches more efficient. A program was taught to follow players once it identified them. They were located by running checks all the way up and down 2B2T's major highways, and then followed them to wherever they were going. Instead of searching in a spiral pattern starting at spawn, an adaptive tracking system would predict where players were headed. The easiest way to describe this exploit is like a game of Battleship, and the enemy ships are players on the server. You can't actually see where they are, and no matter what spot you choose to fire on, your opponent must tell you whether you hit a ship or you've missed. On 2B2T, your opponent is the server itself, and instead of firing missiles, you're trying to click blocks in chunks that you can't see. The server has to tell you whether a chunk you clicked on was loaded or not loaded. After it learned to
That's
track
a great way to put it. He described that
players,
perfectly.
the program would use probability association to identify them. It would notice when specific accounts were connecting and disconnecting from the server. If a trail of chunks was suddenly unloaded at the same time someone disconnected, it began to associate that username with the chunk trail. So after 2 or 3 disconnects, it had a clear idea of who was actually in those chunks. This also allowed the program to chart how far a player had gone in a specific session of Minecraft.
Jeez.
By this point, AFK accounts were being used in all 3 dimensions.
That's insane.
So all player movements were being tracked. Lejerv shared with me how the math behind the adaptive tracking system works for this video, and as you can see, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. From there, the program was taught to...
That's what I'm talking about. People go through all this stuff, all that math for a Minecraft server, bro? Oh my.
Search all incoming chunk information for unnatural blocks, such as shulkers, stained glass, beacons, multiple chests, etc. If these blocks were found, the program would then recreate the chunks in a separate instance of Minecraft. What you are looking at is an actual 2b2t base being reconstructed in real time. The program has identified these chunks as a legitimate base. It's taking the block information and comparing it to what should be there on 2b2t seed, which is publicly known.
Wow.
After running the check, it then displays what is different. Once the process is complete, the world download is automatically stored on a separate database. This feature effectively gave the nerds a form of spectator mode and allowed them to see what was happening in any loaded chunks on the server. Here, you can see an after-the-fact visualization made from years-old data collected on the average base. This one is named Electric Boogaloo. You can see how it starts from nothing, just a few random checks per chunk. Then it grabs and explores areas that are likely to be part of the build. It even goes back and rechecks sections
That's a huge build too,
to see if any changes have been made. With all of these adaptive programming changes, Lejerv would combine them with the nerd's original exploit. What happened next was nothing short of incredible.
Uh-oh. He's building up the hype.
The exploit was now the most powerful in Minecraft history. They were visually tracking every single player movement on the entire server in real time at 1 second intervals.
That is insane,
every
though.
Chunk trail, base location.
Like, how they figure that out? That all for Minecraft server.
Player logout spot was now compromised. Heat maps allowed them to see where the most player activity was happening at all times. They would acquire so much data using this exploit that everything I've mentioned so far is just the tip of the iceberg. It was the ultimate power, and the nerds had to show an incredible amount of restraint in using it. Because it was possible due to a paper vulnerability, this meant that the exploit could work on other servers as well. There was truly nowhere to hide. The exploit had to be kept a secret, and to do that, the group would have to feed the community false information for years to keep them from finding out the truth.
Wow.
Anytime there was evidence of a coordinate exploit being used on the server, the nerds would brush it off as paranoia, or make up a different exploit with enough believability that people would buy it. What they were effectively doing was gaslighting. In the English language, one way to describe gaslighting is convincing a person that their memories of an event are not accurate. For example, let's say that when you were a young child, your parents took you to an amusement park, and while there, they gave you a red balloon. If I wanted to gaslight you, I would say, your balloon wasn't red, it was green. Don't you remember? Now, this is an obvious lie, but if I repeat this statement to you enough times, you might start to believe that you were misremembering, that your balloon was actually green. This
that's very true. That could happen.
Question their own realities is what the nerds had been doing to the community for years. Several of my previous videos involving coordinate exploits had explanations such as tracking ender pearl teleportations or triangulating a base by observing a pet teleporting. The reality was that while these methods were actual exploits, they were used as a cover for the no-com exploit, which was the true method all along.
Wow.
Having believable explanations for bases and stashes being found was crucial.
So not only did they hide this, they came up with other little tiny exploits to cover it, to keep the big exploit from
the nerds
getting
would
out.
start utilizing their exploit more and more. Their use of it would lead to the leaking or griefing of many prominent bases on the server, such as Space Valk 3, the Ice Dragon at Niflheim, the Great Tree, and many more. Sometimes they would just leak the coordinates outright and let aspiring griefers take care of the rest. The nerds began a campaign called Dipper Nation and used memes to troll the community about the true nature of the exploit. What's funny is that in their base leak screenshots, they did not actually visit those places in person. They were using remote viewing to see what the base looked like. They could doom entire builds without even lifting a finger. It seemed like the group was unstoppable. But in the later part of 2019, they would hit a major roadblock. BibleBot, one of the AFK accounts that had been used to obtain chunk information, was locked by Mojang due to suspicious activity involving the authentication servers. Around this time, Housemaster would also lower the server's packet limit by a substantial amount. This meant it was no longer possible to use the exploit by only having a single account logged in. Multiple AFK accounts would have to be used in order to maintain the rate at which data was pulled from the server. Lejerv would also have to retool his machine learning program to overcome these limits. After a few months of downtime, the exploit was back up and running more efficiently than ever.
Well,
but realizing
that roadblock wasn't very long.
Them down, they decided that showing restraint in using the exploit was no longer an option. Of the group members, Ox22, Bubba J, and Lejerv were
what a name, Bubba J,
all members of a separate organization called the Spawn Masons, who had become well known on the server for many of their ambitious projects. The three began taking large amounts of stash coordinates from the NOCOM database and began providing them to the Masons with no questions asked. A subgroup of the Masons, led by a player named Dectonic, would scout out each stash for useful building blocks and decide whether to give it up to the group to steal or destroy it. Over the course of 2020, the group would steal from and then destroy hundreds of stashes around the server. They did this so that the group would have more resources at its disposal. In total, the Masons would acquire more than 200 million Minecraft items from these stashes.
That is insane.
It was clear that anyone able to use the NOCOM exploit had a major advantage over everyone else. While the exploit was running flawlessly, and House was still unaware of the original vulnerability, someone began to notice that something was not right. A player named Zero Neb realized that there were at least 4 accounts logged into the server 24/7. Being able to stay online without getting AFK kicked is very hard, so multiple accounts doing it instantly raised a red flag. Zero Neb began to suspect that the accounts were being used for an exploit of some kind, and he started inquiring about it. His original messages to the nerds had been ignored, but upon mentioning the AFK accounts, he was surprised to see them respond. They dismissed his claim as paranoia, and that he was being ridiculous.
You are, yes you are. I know that you are, and you are a liar trying to de-aim, but you are the secret, the spawn. What?
Zero Neb would attempt to bring these findings to the attention of the greater community, but he was either ignored or laughed at. The nerds would actually program one of their AFK accounts to randomly message Neb with random strings of Morse code from time to time, fueling his paranoia to all-time highs. The nerds would spend the rest of 2020 trolling Zero Neb, raiding stashes, and continuing to expand their database of locations. But
wow.
In
everybody ignore my man Zero Neb out here.
Another group of 2b2t players would stumble upon the original paper vulnerability. Enter Steve 3, Mahan, and Redstoner. Three associates of a group called the Infinity Incursion. They had developed a brute force version of the exploit, but far more primitive. At first, they used it to observe the highways, but after some optimizations, They were able to find base and stash coordinates just like the nerds could. But when it came to tracking players' real-time movements, they could only follow one person at a time, instead of the hundreds that the nerds could. Now, with the ability to only follow one person at a time, I want you to take a guess as to who they decided to track. To absolutely no one's surprise, it was me.
Why would they? Of course they're gonna find out if they decide to track FitMC, bro. That's funny.
In May of 2021, I was base hunting on my Sunday morning live streams. I'd been using an alt account and at the time had not logged into my main account Fit for quite a while. I'm usually pretty good at concealing my location, but somehow I was getting found every single week, which was highly unusual. While stream snipes have happened in the past, they're pretty uncommon occurrences and are usually complete accidents. But to keep getting found every single week, despite being hundreds of thousands of blocks away from spawn,
at least they weren't like killing him. They were just finding him and then giving him stuff.
An exploit was being used. Sure enough, the stream snipers revealed that they had been tracking me using their exploit. They knew exactly where my account was.
Why would they reveal this to him?
I even caught one of them attempting to sell the coordinates of my logout spot for real-world money. At this point, I knew that my main account was not safe to log in with, which is why at the time of me making this video, I haven't logged into it for over 4 months.
What time is sunset today?
4 months.
In early June, the exploit was starting to go public, with more groups starting to gain access to it. Throughout all of June and July, bases and stashes began to fall. The server was going into doomsday mode, with players afraid to even log in out of fear of their bases being blown up. But it was too late. 15,000 locations had already been compromised, regardless of who was online or not.
That's so many bases.
During this chaos that I was finally shown the true power of the exploit. If you saw my previous video, you already know that 10 of us joined forces to grief a base belonging to a player named Beardler. After the grief took place, I actually received a message from Ox22. He had tracked my alt and the accounts of everyone else to the staging area a few days before the grief. Since Beardler had been tracked to that very same location months previously, they already knew why we were there. By using remote viewing, the nerds were able to see the TNT being placed on the actual builds. Without even speaking
That's
to
so
any of
crazy.
them, they knew our plan. It was possible to use the exploit to predict events before they actually happened. I was stunned.
I'm stunned. You could oh my gosh. This is actually insane, bro.
I knew the exploit was powerful, but not that powerful. By this point, the community had reached the breaking point, with many emailing House to warn him about the original FitMC vulnerability. The Masons knew that the exploit was going to end, so they went on one final killing spree, hunting every new player at spawn they could find. Finally, on July 15th, 2021, exactly 3 years after the original exploit was created, House implemented a range limit that effectively destroyed it. Accounts were no longer capable of being tracked, and the server would not give information about faraway chunks.
Attaboy.
But the damage had been done.
Yeah, all these bases got destroyed.
The exploit had left a trail of destruction spanning
I mean, they're still getting destroyed to this day. If they found 15,000, they didn't destroy all 15,000 yet. I guarantee that. So these bases, some of these bases are still like, even if they survive, they could still get hit.
Years across the entire server, Zero Neb, who had been written off as crazy, was actually right all along. He had warned the community, but no one had listened. The total amount of data that the nerds had collected on the entire server was well over 2 terabytes. The majority of the base and stash locations, over 15,000, were still located on their private server. Just like during the 2016 backdoor drama. They were the ones pulling the strings from behind the scenes all along. They never truly quit. As someone who has played Minecraft for over 11 years, the fallout of this exploit has given me a unique perspective. The reason the title of this video is called The Fall of Minecraft's 2b2t is because the server that we've played on all these years, the one that was compromised by the nerds, has finally fallen. With the exploit patched, a new 2b2t can rise from the ashes.
New 2b2t.
While the destruction on the
I like the way he put that, because they have been under NerdCom the entire past like 3 or 4 years, because nobody even knew that they were on top.
Server is going to get a lot
He put that in a very
worse
good
before
way.
it gets better. We can now travel in peace, knowing we aren't being tracked by the all-seeing eye in the sky. Everything that happens here is driven by real players with real motives. For a group of notorious hackers to socially engineer a server admin to open up a vulnerability and using machine learning to create the most powerful exploit in Minecraft history is not a story you can write. It's as real as it gets. And that is why there is no other place in Minecraft like 2b2t. We've always been playing a completely different game. The moral of today's story,
always been playing a different game.
No comment. The question now is what happens next?
It's a new 2b2t. What happens next?
Long video. So if
should I join 2b2t, guys?
You enjoy.
Hey, yeah, drop a like and drop a sub as well. Should I join 2b2t? Is that what needs to happen next? Do they need Rapid to join? Alright, that was an insanely good video. I'm super glad I watched that. Thank you guys for recommending that to me. But drop a sub, like I said. Anyways, it's your boy Rabbit. I'm out. Peace.